Hey everybody, Michael Snyder here, Pacific Northwest Weather Watch. Today is January 2nd. Right now we are looking at the windy map. You can see BC, Washington, Oregon here. Frontal system taking its sweet time to come into the Pacific Northwest, shown here. An additional system out here across the Pacific Ocean here, but those are pretty weak compared to what's coming out here over the ocean. You can see this open wave is going to develop into a monster and it's going to bomb out here across the Pacific Ocean here, known as a bomb cyclone. It's going to deepen more than 24 millibars in a 24-hour period. So it is just a descriptor. It's not meant to scare you. So just kind of be aware of that term out there. You're probably going to hear it thrown about a little bit here for the next couple of days as this really impacts California, brings some strong winds to portions of the Pacific Northwest as well as multiple rounds of precipitation. We'll look at those coming up here in a moment. Now, taking a look here, this is the initial frontal system off the coastline here. This is last night's European run, or yesterday afternoon's European run, spreading some snowfall through the Cascades of Oregon here, but you can see it fall apart as it moves into Washington, B.C. Just light precipitation amounts generally, but a little bit of snow could fall in the higher terrain. The next system here moves up towards Haida Gwaii there, and not much in the way of precipitation, at least not what compared to what's coming here. As you can see, this monster develop here off the Oregon coast as we go on in through Wednesday. Strong east winds are going to be going through the gorge here and some of the Stampede Gap area here through western Washington. As this moves up the coastline here, it's going to bring some strong winds to the Oregon, Washington, Vancouver coastlines as well as some of the higher terrains like the Siskiyou Summit here as this low starts to fill as it moves north. Just a monster storm. It's going to look pretty incredible as we put the satellite imagery into view here in the next couple of days. But you can see multiple rounds of precipitation possible at this as well. Then as we go on into extend it a little bit more, you can see additional systems continuing to hit the west coast of North America here, kind of staying offshore for the most part, but there are additional deep lows that could be moving around off the coastline here in the 10-day period. We'll watch those as we go day at a time. Now, this is looking at total precipitation, the initial system here. You can see not much in the way of precip for the Pacific Northwest, really. The next one is fairly weak as well, but then you can see the big one as we go on in through the day Wednesday here. You can really see it impact some of the Pacific Northwest here. Some of the coastal areas getting some big amounts, but you can see it doesn't make much headway east of the Cascades shown here, and not a lot for the Willamette Valley or the Puget Sound. Mostly a coastal precipitation maker here and some of the higher terrain of British Columbia here too. We're now looking at next Friday night into Saturday morning, but over the 10-day period, not bad precipitation amounts for a lot of the coastal areas here too. Hopefully we can get a little bit of precipitation for eastern Oregon and help beat some of that exceptional drought going on there. But California is going to be the big winner here over the 10-day period, most likely. Now, taking a look here, we got the European on the left versus the GFS on the right. Put this into motion. This is BC, Washington, Oregon, by the way, and this is 18,000 feet, 500 millibars. Just kind of gives you a general idea on our trough and ridge position here. Ridge generally means good weather. Trough usually means bad weather, but you can see the Gulf of Alaska troughing is very prominent here on the short term of these maps. Go into motion here, and you can clearly see that huge cyclone out here off the west coast of North America, mid-latitude cyclone there, and that's going to move up the coastline here, and we're going to continue to bring more action towards the west coast of North America. As you can see here, really good model agreement here through hour 180 between the GFS on the right and the European model on the left. It's hard to get such good agreement here, but you can clearly see it as you go all the way out to the 240-hour 10-day period there. So we're going to remain active here across the west coast of North America. This is total snow. So just putting this into motion, showing that we will get some snowfall, as you can see across the Cascades, the higher terrain of British Columbia as well, Vancouver Island, even the Olympic Mountains getting some as well. But you can see as we go out through hour 180 shown here, pretty good amounts for BC. And, anything helps, trying to keep the snowpack up here while we're going through a little bit of a lull as far as big precipitation makers and a very snowy pattern. We tend to get better snowy patterns for the mountains here when we get the northwest flow off the ocean here and we continue to bring moisture into the region. We're getting some big lows out here that aren't really that favorable for making big mountain snows across places like Washington. But through the 10-day period, you can still see we're getting some decent amounts up through British Columbia shown there. Now, taking a look at the winds, I want to highlight the system coming up here on Wednesday because it's going to bring some interesting winds to the area here. You can see it's really developing here. By the time it's about the parallel to the Oregon-California border here. Some strong east winds going through the gorge here, Stampede Gap here. Then you can see it move up the Oregon coastline here, all the way up the Washington coastline here. So looks like it's going to be pretty windy as we go through the day Wednesday on into Thursday here for the Oregon coast, and then eventually up the Washington coast, Vancouver Island here, as you can see that low pressure system move up towards Haida Gwaii there. Now, this is maximum 10-meter accumulated wind gust in miles per hour. And you can see California really get hammered here. But look at down some of the coastline here. Could be up over 60, 70 miles per hour. But you'll notice it is kind of left to the immediate coastline here and the higher terrain. Not much for the Puget Sound or the Willamette Valley. So not a big windstorm across the big metro areas here of the Puget Sound and the Pacific Northwest. You can see eastern Washington, mainly just higher terrain as well. No big winds coming here for Spokane over the next few days. We'll make sure to let everybody know if that change is coming up here. But you see the coast of Vancouver Island getting some decent winds as well. But you can clearly see the power of this storm. Some really big winds associated with it, mainly offshore or just confined to the coast. Now, this is looking at Portland. This is an east wind event here coming up here as we go through Wednesday afternoon and Wednesday night. Some gusts up over 40 miles per hour are possible. Some of the ensemble members here have gusts up towards 50 miles per hour as well. Southwest Regional Airport down there on the southwest Oregon coast. You can see some big winds possible here, and there is some disagreement between the ensembles. You can see some bigger gusts showing up and some lesser gusts in there too. So it just depends on the track of that storm. It's going to make all the difference in what kind of wind speeds are experienced there on the Oregon coast. This is Brookings, Oregon. Look at this, though. Pretty good model agreement, well up into the mid-50s here on the ensemble mean, and a lot of gusts here up over 60 miles per hour showing up in some of these as well. So heads up down there for some strong winds coming through Brookings, Oregon, and some places on the Oregon coast. This is Siskiyou Summit. You can see the big model disagreement here, or ensemble disagreement, I should say, as there's a big variability here in just how strong the winds are going to be across some of the higher terrain there. Again, depends on the track of the storm. This is Tillamook here. Pretty good ensemble agreement for gusts up towards 50 miles per hour here, and maybe a couple rounds of it as we go as well. Now you can see Quileute here as we go out towards Thursday afternoon and evening. Some pretty good gusts could impact portions of the Washington coast, so have your heads up for that all the way up the Washington coast towards Vancouver Island. Now this is the 6 to 10 day temperature outlook. Kind of keeps us above normal as we're getting this flow off the Pacific Ocean here across Pacific Northwest. 6 to 10 day precipitation outlook still has us above average here. As you can see, the bullseye is down there on California. This is 6 to 10 day precipitation outlook, actually 8 to 14 days, sorry, just kind of showing the general trend here for these Pacific storms to continue moving through the Pacific Northwest. And this is put out December 30th, 3 to 4 week temperature outlook here for January. Basically, this goes all the way through the end of January, and kind of that above average signal continuing here across the Pacific Northwest here. So maybe we'll get a warm January, then we'll cool back down and deal with some Arctic air again here in February. We'll see how that works out. And this is the same thing here for weeks 3 to 4 precipitation values, generally above normal. So yeah, we're going to continue to watch the storm develop out here. I can't wait to see what it looks like on satellite imagery as we come up here. It's going to be quite an interesting one. It looks like it's going to stay far enough off the coastline to spare Seattle and Portland and the big metro areas here a big windstorm, but it could still hammer the coast pretty well. And you're going to see a lot of headlines about bomb cyclone out here across the Pacific Ocean. So just be prepared for that. California's going to get really hard. I'll do a little video on that here in a moment as well. But anyway, yeah, thanks to my new members, my new subscribers. We're getting close to 19,000 subscribers on the channel now. You guys all make this possible. We'll do this again tomorrow. We'll check this thing out, and we'll start to look at the satellite imagery as we get into tomorrow's forecast as well and start to track the motion of this storm as it moves towards our area. So our wacky weather looks like it's going to continue up here into the early portion of January here, but it looks like we might stay warm this month. But I have a hunch we'll flirt with Arctic air again at some point this year across Pacific Northwest. I know that's what a lot of people want to hear. But anyway, yeah, we'll do this again tomorrow. We'll watch this storm develop, and I'll talk to you guys then.